The big thing I think that Vision 2020 can bring is a direction, and it would help us understand how we might build for that direction into the future and build a strategy around that. While we've been doing lots of very good bottom-up activities, there is an absence of that direction in an Irish startup context. So I think the role that Startup Ireland can play is firstly setting that vision and getting the community together, or the community influencers together, to set out an aligned vision and keeping that alive. I think working with all the various community entities, be that legal, government, the multinational companies, the community organisations, the accelerators themselves. So I think Vision Startup Ireland has a key role to play, working with all of those to, one, get that vision going, and two, then drive that forward.
Startup Ireland can continue to lead the way by bringing people together, by helping people know what the priorities are for the country, and by coalescing the public policies to help support the drive of making Ireland the most welcoming place in the world for tech startups.
I think Startup Ireland have a key role here. I mean, for a start, to pull us all together here, all the stakeholders and all the people involved in this area, to actually focus on this and to drive on this. And there's a lot of initiatives out there, there's a lot of support structures in various places, a lot of players here. You've got Enterprise Ireland, you've got SFI, you've other government agencies, you've got community interest groups, you've got professional people in this area as well. So a lot of people are interested, and there's a lot of different channels, but Startup Ireland can pull that together, I think, into a focus. And first part of that is to actually set the agenda. And this target, this Vision 2020 of making Dublin that centre for that and that hub is a key. So you have to say it first and then aim for it. So I think Startup Ireland can drive that agenda.
Voice, and it basically is saying, come on, there's actually a place for you. If you've got an idea, if you want to start a business, there's a place for you to immediately come, find out about what's out there, find out how to do it, but also to meet like-minded people who you can learn from and who you can develop your idea with, so you're not on your own. I think one of the biggest fears for entrepreneurs is, I'm on my own and I don't know where to start from. I think this gives them an opportunity to say, there's something here, there's something local, and it actually relates well to me and what I want to do.
Basically, what I would say is that everyone has a responsibility towards developing and enhancing our entrepreneurial ecosystem. The role of Startup Ireland is, it's the glue that brings all of these people together. But it's not Startup Ireland's responsibility to make it happen, it's just they're the group that can coordinate and enable all of the different stakeholders to build a coherent vision.
Yeah, so I think today is a great example of how we get the word out there. The Web Summit is another example, and I think we have to try and constantly promote startups, because sometimes they can get swallowed up by the big companies that's out there. So I think we, the big companies, have to think about not just themselves, but think about the small guys, and it's about engaging together and bringing us both together so that we can drive that startup culture.
I think one of the things that comes through clearly from the research is that startups want a community of support. They want to belong to a network that is about helping one another succeed and grow. And I think the role for Startup Ireland is to be that network and be that source of support.
It's all about working with the communities. I mean, government can only do so much, in the sense that there has to be more joined up thinking in lots of ways, and there are a lot of supports out there, but people don't seem to be able to access them, and I think that's one thing we really need to change quickly.
I think Startup Ireland has to become the advocates for the startup industry here in Ireland. I think it has to be really bold in what it says to government, to policymakers, to Europe. It also needs to be a bridge into Europe for many of the 250 startup businesses that are here, and I think the way of doing that is to really have very strong ambition, be prepared to sell what's going on here as a location, being prepared also to help those businesses that are really successful possibly stay here, and that for that to happen requires venture capital support, and to be that kind of bridge into financial support as well for the businesses. But I think ultimately to make policymakers here in Dublin and in Brussels aware of the kind of supports that startups need to get to the next stage of their business development.
I think Startup Ireland has a key role to play in terms of providing a glue which will bring all the different elements of the ecosystem together and really drive the process of creating Dublin as a startup hub by 2020.
So
So I think there are kind of three elements really where Startup Ireland really can play a key role. And one, I suppose, is kind of nurturing the entrepreneurial spirit and making sure that people do see it as a career option. I think secondly, it's then to make sure that it's bringing together the relevant interested parties, the relevant bodies, and that there's really that collaboration, because there is a lot of good work going on, but it's making sure that there is a focus around it. And then I think thirdly, it's around having a voice, I suppose, for the startups. So the pre-budget submission that was made is really great at highlighting some of the tax issues that need to be addressed. So it's more of that kind of stuff that I think is really helpful.
There's a key role in terms of being a champion for entrepreneurs, in terms of addressing the issues, and we've discussed a lot of those this morning in terms of things like tax and funding and all sorts of building issues, etc. So really just keeping a focus in terms of how can we make it happen, what are the blocks, and unblocking the blocks, and working with all the different parts of the state and the private sector and the players in the industry to do that. One of the issues as well is the whole policy agenda. So just keeping upping the ante and lobbying on behalf of the specific issues that entrepreneurs have in the early stages, which are less of an issue for some of the more established companies.
I think Startup Ireland is a fantastic organisation. We're really, really supportive of them, and we are actually working with them. One of the things that we really like they're doing is the careers fair. So they're trying to make entrepreneurship seen as a career for students and for third level, and we'll be working with them on that.
What role do you see for Startup Ireland in helping make Dublin a global tech startup by 2020? Their actual role?
I think that the marketing of the early stage company space from an Irish perspective is something that startup can have a big role in, and that getting the word out internationally is very important for all of us. And anything that can add to the internationalisation and the globalisation of the image of Ireland, that'll help in terms of developing things. So startup can have that very important catalytic role in terms of doing that. There's a number of agencies involved, there's a number of bodies already here that are doing this, but the more the merrier. And what we have to be really cognizant of is the international competition that we face. And when you take some other locations such as London and Berlin, they are very, very organised in terms of the marketing of their cities and countries, and we need to be equally so, and if not, we need to be better than them.
I think for Startup Ireland, I think they are in an excellent position to be a repository of all the experience and knowledge of those startups that have gone before and can make that information available to the startups that are going to be coming down the road. Equally, I think there's no point reinventing the wheel. I think there are plenty of other startup hubs around the world, and why not use Startup Ireland, Startup Dublin to effectively gather that experience, gather that knowledge, and let's do it better than everyone else.
Yeah, I think the key thing that Startup Ireland can do is bring coherence to all of this, and I think this is very clear from any of us who have looked at this. There are many good things happening, but they're happening locally, they're happening regionally, they're in a very fragmented fashion. And I think if Startup Ireland can do one major thing, it's bring coherence and an overall strategic plan to this. Active as an advocacy body to engage with government, to start shifting policy. If they could create this venue that we've been talking about, the startup venue, this iconic startup venue, that would be a major achievement. But the fact that an entity now exists that is trying to draw it all together, I think is a huge step forward, and it certainly will have our support.
One thing I would really appeal for Startup Ireland to do, I think, is the work that's been started on research and the data, because there's a lot of hype going on at the moment. A number of people have talked about that. And on the other side, there's quite a lot of economic work that says, startups, they create jobs, but they all fail, so it's very easy to waste money on supporting them. I think it's important that the research is designed to follow through very clearly and acknowledge the companies that are failing, not to look for numbers just of startups, but also look at the jobs that are lost as well, and that Startup Ireland becomes acknowledged as a reputable source for data in the area, so that genuine policy benefits can be accrued to everyone.
I think it's clear from today that there's a huge amount of resources, know-how, energy, and really a desire to put Ireland on the map as a go-to destination for high-growth international startups. The challenge is who is going to coordinate that, who is going to be mission control, and I think that's where Startup Ireland steps in.
And the role to us for a startup actually is very much to, firstly, to set a very high strategic objective. So their 2020 vision around making Ireland and Dublin in particular, the tech hub, or one of the leading tech hubs globally, is setting the strategic ambition that the country needs to kind of deliver to a very high ambition. And very much the other role we see for Startup Ireland, or where we're seeing them adding value already, actually is the coordination role. So there's lots of supports out there, but actually the coordination and making everybody drive hard towards the Vision 2020 is a very important role that they play, rather than kind of having gone off on different objectives or tangents. So Startup Ireland have a critical role to play in that coordination towards an important end objective being Vision 2020.
Startup Ireland and organisations like that, in cooperation with Enterprise Ireland, in cooperation with the IDA, in cooperation with the Dublin Chamber of Commerce, and all of the people who are involved in startup. There's a real energy within Ireland at the moment about getting us as a hub for startup businesses and having an ecosystem. So from my perspective, you know, an organisation like Startup Ireland is a critical part to that. They can't do it on their own, and it's plugging into the ecosystem. And importantly, what we've seen is that nobody's really competing in this space. It's that, you know, there's Dell for entrepreneurs, there's Google for entrepreneurs, and a couple of companies like that who are leading that charge. Is that we're all there to help the ecosystem. So I see Startup Ireland as an important part of that overall ecosystem.
Well, Startup Ireland is a really important organisation in the startup ecosystem right across Ireland. I'm a big fan of Startup Ireland. In fact, I asked Startup Ireland to be involved in my advisory group on small business, because I think it can really play an important role in developing indigenous startups in Ireland, but also attracting important startups from abroad to locate in Ireland at an early stage, and to help Ireland, I think, work to scale up small businesses to realise their full potential. So Startup Ireland's contribution to my work as Minister for Business and Employment over a short period of time has been really, really important.
I think Startup Ireland can do many things. First of all, the fact that it brings a focus to this area is very good. It provides a focus, a voice for startups and for the small, medium enterprises. It also, of course, brings together a panel or a group of established entrepreneurs and business folks. And so we're discussing, for example, with Startup Ireland, how we might start a buddy system or a kind of mentoring system where there could be young, very bright researchers, often with ideas to solve real-world problems, who could be matched up with an existing entrepreneur who would perhaps give them some help and guidance. That could be in parallel with formal training, such as that run at the Ryan Academy or the Innovation Academy in the various universities in Ireland. And in a way try and educate people about the possibilities of starting their own business, maybe get them into an accelerator program, maybe get them into an existing startup, maybe use our industry fellowship program where we will fund any of the researchers we fund to spend up to 1 year in a company